just.
So if they don't come, just scoot it over. Oh, that's what I meant.
Guess not. Who did you guys make mad last meeting? Guess I'll go ahead and start. Go ahead and start. Okay.
There was an honest mistake.
Well, I was told that. No, take the back one. Use it. That's why.
Welcome to the May 6th meeting of the Mobile City Planning Commission. I would like to take a moment to review our general operating procedure. Our meeting is divided into two sessions, the public hearing session and deliberation session. In the public hearing session, an application or group application on the agenda is called. The applicant makes his or her presentation. Commission members ask questions, if any. Members of the public make their comments. Only 4 people may speak for an agenda item or project and 4 against. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, subject to questions by the commission. After 4 minutes, a loud beep will indicate 1 minute left to speak. And at this point, please summarize your comments. After all opposition speakers have finished, the applicant will be given time to respond. If you do intend to speak, please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, and give your name and address for our minutes. Please direct all comments to the commission only and not to the applicant or the audience, and please remember to speak directly into the microphone. On routine applications, the applicant may simply raise his or her hand if there are no objections to the staff recommendations. I will then announce that the applicant is in full agreement with those recommendations. If there are any questions, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. After hearing all applications, the commission will go into deliberation session. In the deliberation session, the commissioners discuss each application with input from the staff as necessary, but with no input from the audience. The commissioners then vote on each application, and the results of voting can be learned from the planning department. If some issue arises in the deliberation session that were not addressed in the public hearing, the chairman has the discretion either to allow additional comments pertaining to those issues in order to resolve them, or call for the application to be held over for discussion at a future meeting. Occasionally, one or more commission members may recuse themselves from discussing and voting on a given application. A recusal does not necessarily mean the member is directly involved with the application or the applicant. Depending upon the circumstances, ethical rules may require a recusal when there is only the slightest appearance of a conflict of interest. If a regular member recuses, a supernumerary will vote in their stead, unless both supernumeraries are already voting due to absences. The Planning Commission makes final decisions subject to appeal on subdivisions, planning approvals, plan unit developments, PUDs. The Planning Commission only makes recommendations on zoning applications, with the City Council making the final decision. Please turn off or mute all cell phones at this time. Commissioners and staff, please remember to turn on your microphones when speaking. Roll call, myself present, Ms. Libby Latham.
Here.
Mr. Alan Cameron. Here. Mr. Taylor Atchison. Mr. Matt Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Nick Umberger.
Here.
Ms. Bess Rich.
Here.
Mr. Don Hembry. Mr. Jay Stubbs.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Now move for the adoption of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor of adoption of the agenda is printed.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes. We begin with our holdover items. Item number 1, 508 and 518 Dolphin Street. Planning approval. Staff recommends that the commission decide. Applicant present.
Board, thank you for your time and consideration. My name is Matthew Lamond, applicant for 508 and 518 Dolphin Street. I reside at 10 Houston Street, Mobile, Alabama, 06. I am the owner and operator of O'Daly's Irish Pub, Post Crafted Cocktails and Wine Bar, Cedar Street Social Club, property address 210 Dolphin Street and 601 St. Francis Street. I've been working and investing in downtown Mobile for a little over 15 years now, and in that time I have developed close to 10,000 square feet of vacant storefronts along Dolphin Street. With this new proposed development, it would bring that to almost 20,000 square feet along Dolphin Street, continuing to bridge the gap of vacant and blighted buildings throughout our beloved street. We had the chance to meet with some neighbors and listen to their concerns, and I would like to touch on some topics of conversation and how we plan to address. This new development will operate under a restaurant license versus a Class 2 liquor license, meaning that the hours will shift from an approved closing time as late as we may legally choose to a hard close at 2 a.m. Additionally, the restaurant license will allow a more family-friendly, all-ages customer base. The intent is to provide all ages an opportunity to dine and enjoy Dolphin Street with multiple food options. The bar area will be strictly enforced to 21 and up customers at a time that would be more suited for adults. The new development will not have an indoor live music, and no stage is being constructed inside the venue. The exterior canopies will have outdoor speakers similar to many downtown businesses. We plan to angle mount the speakers downward to project the music towards customers enjoying the venue and to the ground as to not project the music past our venue. We also commit to providing a limiter for the outdoor speakers that would only allow the speakers to project a level approved by the City of Mobile noise ordinance. The limiter will also help regulate accidental noise control by staff. We will also follow the City of Mobile noise ordinance guidelines as to the hours when amplified music can be played and to what decibel levels are approved. The exterior operating windows will follow the same City of Mobile noise ordinance guidelines to limit any interior noise projected onto the street. To additionally mask unwanted customer noise, we will also provide fencing and a vegetated buffer on the rear yard. In the event any outdoor music opportunity would prevent itself as a positive situation for the business and downtown Mobile, we will follow the necessary actions to apply for all permits and noise ordinance waivers. Additionally, as always, I will personally deliver a letter stating dates, times, and complimentary invite to the event to all neighbors surrounding. Lastly, staff addressed the condos directly across the street from the proposed development. I would like to note that Some of the neighbors have sent in letters of support for the project, and I believe those were sent to the Planning Commission email. The application states they were asking for approval of over 100 people. While considering this application, please note that my current operating business, one block to the west, holds a higher occupant load than what we are asking for in this proposed development and has been in operation for almost 12 years. The project will also employ 40-plus community members. I really appreciate your time and consideration for this development. As always, it will be my goal to find common ground and compromise to add value to the ever-growing and robust downtown Mobile. As the mayor stated in his original campaign 8 years ago to make Mobile the most business-friendly by 2020, well, we are in 2021, and I look forward to continuing to work with the mayor and community of Mobile to strive to always be the most business-friendly city in the U.S.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments by commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to make sure that this commission understands, because I don't, will there be a door between the bar and the food hall? I.e., can they go back and forth?
Yes, sir. It's towards the exterior of the food hall. There's a hallway that will be constructed so that you can travel throughout. With the restaurant license, it would allow additional seating for, all age families to sit in that avenue. With the restaurant license, it allows us to regulate the 21 and up customers at the time that we would see fit, that it wouldn't make sense for underage customers.
I guess this is a question for you and the staff. The description says you're asking for 162 for the bar portion and 84 for the food hall. How can we enforce that? And if you could have 246 people all as a bar, since they're connected. I mean, is there any way to enforce that, or do you have any plans to enforce that? I just want to make sure everybody understands.
Yes, sir. No, I
I'm not
understand.
against you. I just want to make sure everybody understands.
Absolutely. No, it's the best example that I can give is my current operating businesses with separate capacities in each location, and it is, the capacity guidelines are set there so that we can keep the appropriate amount of people in each business. This will be a more sit down and enjoy type venue versus pack it out concept. I think we learned after the COVID aspect that it's been a little bit of a challenging year, but we've learned that it does work for a more long-lasting business for us.
So the hallway, if I remember correctly, your existing businesses have that hallway connecting all three of them, don't they?
There's a hallway between two of them, and then there's the patio on the back side that connects to the third.
So this hallway would be similar to that?
It would be similar, yes, sir.
And you might have said this a minute ago when you started, I couldn't hear everything. Is there with your restaurant license, is it a requirement that you close at a particular time? And
Yes, sir. With the restaurant license, you have to close at 2 a.m.
2?
Yes, sir.
So the bar would be open past 2?
Pardon me?
The bar could be open past 2?
No, sir. It would have to close at 2 o'clock.
And if the restaurant quit serving at 10, you could still have 246 people in there all acting like it's a bar, I guess. I mean, you can't really split the 146 or whatever those numbers are, 162 and 84. It's really all for one.
You have to go back to their floor plan. And again, we've been through this with other properties within the DDD. The occupancy load is calculated based on the building code. And the building code, you can group areas, and they're considered an A1 assembly, hypothetically. and you calculate the load for that A1 assembly based on X number of square feet in there equates to one occupant. And so however many square feet, that's how many occupants you can have in there per the building code. The restaurant area may be a assembly 2, an A2 occupancy with a different formula to calculate that occupant load. And then you add all of that up, and that gives you the total occupant load for this site as shown on the plan here. This approval, if granted, would allow the occupant load as proposed by the applicant, which I believe is now at 200.
46.
Down the street. Yes.
The application, 246.
Correct. So that would be the max, if approved.
But it's not the way the description's written in the staff report, his description, not the staff's. It's like the bar is only going to have 162 people, but actually you could have 246 in the entire facility to 2 o'clock as a bar, drinking.
As far as the building code is
Yeah, okay.
concerned.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so what is the, I should probably know this off the top of my head, but how late could you have amplified sound coming out of the speakers in the evenings?
How late can you? Per the city mobile noise ordinance, you can have it as late as 11 p.m. at 50 decibels.
Yeah, okay.
A question for the staff. When I look at the drawing here, it's kind of hard for me to tell, but I guess, is this the bar side? I mean, that kind of appears to be, at least where it says bar, and it looks like it wraps around the bar.
Because
And then
weekends.
is this all the food? And so the areas that are called out as stalls, what is that? And is that like a?
It's basically like a built-in food truck, essentially. So it would be separate restaurateurs in those, operating those separate locations, but they'd be permanent, within the
Okay.
building.
And then so you have people that sit at a bar and eat whatever it is that's being prepared. in
Yeah,
those
so it'd be no
locations.
different if like you walked in there with the board, y'all all went to 5 different vendors, but y'all all sat at the same table. So you could order at multiple locations and then
Okay.
sit at the same table.
And then in what's called out as the food hall, that's just tables?
Yeah, that's
spread
what
out
the overall concept is.
Okay,
It's basically a food court, but it's the new age name of calling it a food hall.
Okay. I just couldn't quite follow the drawing how it is, but I think I understand now.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
The goal is to help incubate restaurateurs to invest in downtown Mobile at a much lower rate than what it would be to get a brick and mortar building in downtown Mobile. And as they get more successful, to incubate them into larger restaurant space to fill up other buildings. So, the overall investment is what we're taking the risk on because of the overall structure. They can come at, $10,000 to $20,000 with a little bit of business advice and use their restaurant knowledge to do their best items every single day. And then as they continue to grow, we can help them gauge into larger structures.
So what you characterize as stalls are potentially like little mini restaurants?
Yes, sir, and they would lease
within-
those spaces.
Just within a larger structure?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so it looks like the connection points, it looks like there's possibly a door here, and then maybe a door here. And then
Those
what's the
those
outside
two
corridor?
stalls on that side would be able to service the bar side after the food hall would close.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So they'd be serving food into the bar area
Yes, ma'am.
after the... And then one more question on that. Over here on the right, on the far side across from where the food stalls are, there are 3 bars. It looks like seating at them. Is that just additional restaurant seating?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Do you,
What's that?
I didn't want to.
But are they food service? Okay, so they're fine. Got it.
For the applicant. Do you pick up a
a lounge liquor application or a retail restaurant?
A retail restaurant is what would be applied for this.
So you'll have more food service than you will have alcohol beverage, because isn't that the
That's correct.
tipping point?
With the 5 vendors in there operating food, the intention is that there will be more food sales than alcohol sales.
But you'll have different hours, though, for operations. So did I misunderstand that?
There will be the 3 stalls, I guess, on y'all's left there, and the middle stall on the other side will have, the normal hours. The late night is what we're calling this, stall 1, and I think what I can read up there, maybe it's 3 that will service the bar side. They will have more late night hours.
Yeah, so you essentially have 6 mini restaurants underneath the roof, so much like a food court. And
That's correct.
they may or may not be all open at the same time. Ideally, maybe
So,
they all are, but.
Yeah, based off the food hall, like the owner side, we would require them as, with that space to be open set hours.
Sure.
That they would have to be open so that those options are available. But the goal is to follow other local restaurants in the neighborhoods, hours and times to kind of mirror that time. Obviously special events and stuff like that is a little bit different. And then that side will close those, essentially their windows that will be open on the late night side. So then that food hall side can be closed and cleaned up, and those 2 stalls can service that bar side without anything happening to Dolphin Street.
So just one more question on that. So they're going to serve food to the bar side, even though you're under a restaurant license that's closing at 10, you'll be serving food?
2.
From 2. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
Well, they'll close at 2, and the bar can still stay open later than that?
The bar will have to close at 2 o'clock.
What kind of special events do you anticipate?
It's hard to say after this year.
Can we didn't-
Yes, ma'am. The goal is this is going to be my first family-friendly operation here, and the goal is to include those things that would be the art walk type events where we say I've been a big proponent about closing Dolphin Street for those events to get more traffic along the street. But as of right now, it's hard to say. Like, the biggest thing is focusing on getting this project approved and underway. We have done events in the past from supporting local nonprofits. We do other events, like I noted, the live music events. That's not something that's in schedule. It's something that those come up, and as they come up, I have to go through the application process and get that approved to do those. But for now, the goal is getting this open and operated.
But when you talk about the special events, right now you would be limited to the numbers that you're saying are going to be on
Absolutely.
events.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless it was a situation where the street was open and closed off that, we could use to.
So you're envisioning its future success would have events that would grow the number of people that you would be advertising to and support, wanting to support?
Yeah, I mean, the goal would be just to support as many, customers as we can legally do, as we can legally hold, and safely. I mean, in the restaurant and bar business, my number one goal is, number one job is liability. That's my biggest risk of everything, is the safety of my customers, the safety of my staff, and the safety of myself. Making a profit is a distant number 4.
Any other questions from commissioners? Anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against?
Am I done here?
One more.
Oh, you're
Hey, guys, my name is Jake Peavy. My address is 4118 Yellow Heron Lane. I'm here just to lend my favor as a downtown business owner, as a neighbor. And just to speak on what Matt has done for 11, 12 years and who he's been in his current businesses, and also being a dad of 4 boys that love to come downtown Mobile, having something family-friendly for them to enjoy. Another thing that family-friendly would be wonderful. So I'm in favor for it, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
And I have opposition. My name's Arthur Madden. I live at on 202 State Street. My office is at 465 Dauphin Street, which is across the street from the development and a half a block up. I also have an apartment there. The T5.1 district subzoning was intended to be a medium-density area to encourage mixed use, both residential and commercial. The zoning has worked. Many people have put money into apartments, condominiums, and homes in the neighborhood. And I'd ask that the application be denied so that that goal of the downtown development district is not eroded in piecemeal fashion. I would want to point out something that I think is not evident from the presentation here. There is, if we could get up, I don't know if you cycle through those, keep going, the site plan. There, let's go right there. The project area, as is shown, really misstates the footprint of the project. The old Key Loan Building would be the corner of North Cedar Street and Dauphin Street. That's owned by the same owner. As of an hour ago, they were doing construction in an outdoor seating area there. There are wooden planters and there's other permanent fixtures. There's no doorway into that area except a closed doorway from the project area into that seating area. So I'm not sure what the goal is, but there's no way to get there. That's the first thing that's misleading, that it looks like there's anticipated outdoor activities and seating in a property that adjoins there, which has common ownership, but is not shown. That's one. The second thing is, there it says vacant parcel. Maybe it's the next slide, if you could show it. Adjacent building, no work. That's also owned by the same owners. That's the Cedar Street Social Club. There is an adjoining door that runs from the project site back there. You can walk through there. It's not shown on here, but into the covered building that's X'd out, the big white circle. That's the Cedar Street Social Club. That's presently a bar. It's in operation. You go through there into the backyard, that this project also opens into the backyard, and that's where certain entertainment activities, the wiffle ball field, is accessed by the social club, which says adjacent building, no work, and the proposed development. So the functional effect of this is to aggregate the present load in the social club together with the 246 people that are proposed for this, and also spread into the vacant lot, no work Key Loan site, which is on the corner of Cedar and Dauphin. So the impact of this on the neighborhood is going to be magnified. It's going to be inconsistent with the medium density. It would erode the T5.1 zoning, and it would put in jeopardy the investment that the people made in reliance on that zoning. So I'd ask that the application be denied. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I encourage you to take a look at the site.
Anyone else here to speak against? Applicant has the opportunity to respond if he so chooses.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do need to draw to the attention of the commission, each of you should have beside you comments both in support and opposition to this application.
Thank you. Did the applicant want to respond to? All right. Hearing nothing else, we'll move to the next agenda item. Item number 2, 2621 Ralston Road, recommended to be withdrawn. Applicant?
Jerry Bird, Bird Surveying Company, 2609 Halls Mill Road, Mobile. Well, first, I was going to ask that this not be withdrawn and held over. But I don't understand why we can't act on this application. We're here for rezoning and a PUD to allow a second building on a single lot. It has nothing to do with the off-street parking. That is being handled with a Board of Adjustment application. The rezoning is to clear up a mistake made by the Planning Commission in 1996, I think it was, that recorded a lot that had split zoning. R1 part of it and B2, I think, is the other part. But the PUD plan, like I say, is purely for a second building on the property.
Staff?
The commission could proceed with making a decision on the rezoning if they so choose. Typically, when you have combo applications, you decide them at the same time. On the planned unit development, I would recommend that that be held over until the issue of the parking is resolved, because I can't see having that building rebuilt if you don't have adequate parking.
And that's before
And that's before the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
Yeah.
What's the
All right.
timeline on
We'll
the
hold over.
zoning adjustment board?
They're having problems communicating or getting a response. The owner's authorization for their proposed off-site parking, it's owned by the Catholic Church, and it's moving a little slowly. So their variance has been held over until their July meeting, which we would recommend at a minimum the PUD be held over until then as well.
And I only brought up about the rezoning. Like I say, it is to correct a mistake. And if it's approved today here, it's still going to be 2 months down the road before it will ever be hopefully approved by City Council. It just takes that long for the advertising and everything. So it would all come about at the end, rather than having to wait into July, hopefully get an approval, and then 2 months later, we have the zoning straightened out.
What? Okay. Is this going to continue to be a church? Why does it have to be rezoned out of
Well, as Mr. Byrd said, you know, the site is split zoned now, which can be considered an error because it should be all one zoning classification.
So staff wouldn't be objectionable to taking them separately and holding over one and
Correct, because
the
the
other.
expansion cannot occur until that variance is approved. I would recommend that the PUD wait, but the zoning issue can stand on its own.
yeah. It also looks like some consideration's gonna have to be given for, the impervious area too, for any drainage, and it didn't, all I see is a rectangle for a new building, so
Yeah.
that's gonna have to be taken into account some way, somehow.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Jackson?
Yeah.
There was, the reason you want to get that site into the, and I see what they did, they built into the R1, which technically obviously they can because they're a church, but is it an expansion of the church that you're doing? Or
No.
do a B2 business there?
There was an existing building on the same footprint that was connected to the main church. And 2 or 3 years ago, they told me a tropical storm kind of came through, blew a tree down on it, that end of it, and not advantageous to build it back. Didn't have the money, and when they started to go at it and try to rebuild, it had gone past 1 year, and so they lost the being grandfathered in to do it. So we're having all of these applications to try to correct all of that.
So the previous footprint of the other building.
Previous
so
footprint,
That helps you
yeah.
in the impervious areas. Okay, that's a better situation.
So what's the proposed church?
It's not, that building is a multipurpose building. I think there's a basketball court in there, maybe smaller. I don't know if it's regulation or not. They would have some programs, I suppose. They have the sanctuary to take care of most things, but it's,
Can we get the site plan? See where it says proposed church? Is that in the R1 side? I'm
yeah, the proposed, says proposed church, is proposed multipurpose building. That is in the R1 portion of that lot.
Right. But what are you putting in that, where's the new B2 coming?
Yeah.
You said it's gonna be a commercial, it's no longer just all church.
No, it's
No.
It's going to be like their activity center and classrooms.
Does that require a B2?
No, ma'am, but the problem is, and let's stick up here. The existing site, the church did encompass this, the building itself. It was damaged in a storm a few years back and was demolished. And so the church structure itself ends about right here. The church structure itself already encroaches, that what remains is already in the R1.
Okay, I get that, but look at, we're being told there's a proposed church, and it's, so that,
Yeah. I think.
Yeah. It's not a new church on the site.
oh, it is still church, it's not a commercial venture.
No.
Correct.
No.
Correct. It's a new building for the existing church.
So, but the purpose of the rezoning is to eliminate the split zoning on
Yes,
one piece of
ma'am.
property.
Correct.
Yeah. And like I say, it happened in 1996 when they did a subdivision and didn't pick up on the fact that that R1 zoning was in that lot, or it should have been done back then.
Or they could have kept using it.
Or do we look at the zoning and say that people, because let's say this church someday decides to sell the whole each lot into B2. So can we say that they would get the,
Yes, ma'am. You know, that can be,
how we treated churches?
yes, ma'am, and that can be a specific stipulation on the rezoning.
Because there's a residence
However, staff would point out that is one of the variance requests you have, is the buffer fence.
Right. Well, the buffer fence, yeah, I'd ask for it to be waived because this building, yeah, it's a metal building, maybe with a facade on the street side. The windows in the building, the bottom of the window is 8 feet up. I mean, a 6-foot fence 10 feet away from it is not going to do any good. A visual.
But we're rezoning the entire parcel, and so anything
Okay.
that B2, if they would decide
All
to
right.
sell it.
Well, hold over the zoning then, and we'll go through the Board of Adjustment. I've asked for that at Board of Adjustment.
So you're okay with holding over both?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I mean, like I say, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend money building a 6-foot board fence when you got an 8-foot wall.
Okay.
So let me make sure I'm clear, we're back to holding over, potentially holding over the whole thing.
Just holding both of them.
All right, thank you.
And when you come back, we'll have the parking arrangement too, right?
Anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against?
Excuse me. That hold over, I was asking for, what was it? July 15th. That'll be 3 days after the Board of Adjustment meeting.
Next, we'll move to our extensions. Item number 3, 3050 and 6086 White Bark Drive, subdivision and PUD, both recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Applicant is present and is in agreement with the extension of the subdivision and PUD. Is there anyone here to speak for or against this? Thank you. New subdivision applications. Item number 4, 1864 Staples Road, Dog River Park subdivision. Recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff? Applicant is present and in agreement with staff recommendations. Is there anyone else here to speak for or against this application? Thank you. Item number 5, 33 Kingsway, Moore subdivision, recommended to be denied. Is the applicant present?
Brett Orrell with Poly Surveying. Had an opportunity to speak with Ms. Pappas this morning in regards to this application. We need to address a few items here. There was, when we did some further investigating on the survey side, we're going to need to look at the frontage that's currently represented here. It is actually less. There was a re-subdivision that happened in the 60s that didn't get picked up on. And so there's a major drain on the western side of this property that goes to the country club. And so at some point in the 60s, the estate sold a portion of that property. Because of that ditch location, it didn't make sense for them to own property on the other side. So we need to do some reconfiguring of this to represent it properly for you all before we address it there. I was informed about midday today there was an email from a concerned neighbor. They may be here. We'll of course listen to them. But what we would prefer to hold it over for just one meeting. We feel confident we can get that information to the staff along with some changes to the narrative to make our case.
Applicant has requested a holdover, which,
Mr. Chairman, if I may
Yes, go ahead.
ask him a question. In your survey, have you picked up the actual drainage structure where it exists? Because they don't always get built in the
Well,
easements as they're
yes,
surveyed.
and currently, I need to investigate a little further to the west to
Okay.
ensure we have it correctly marked. It appears that it possibly could be slightly outside of the easement.
Okay.
And if so, I think we could rectify that with this plat to ensure that at least the structure itself, it's not much, a foot, but
yeah.
go ahead and maybe instead of a 15, we kind of widen that slightly to encompass
Yeah.
that. Would that be your take on that?
Well, yeah, we always have to make sure we know exactly where it is relative to revised
Sure.
property lines, and just make sure we have easements there adequate enough to maintain it or replace it in the future. I mean, that's unfortunately what causes a lot of challenges with maintaining the infrastructure. Is we don't have, if we have a little bit of, say, a 5-foot easement along the top of a 30-foot wide ditch, we can't get the appropriate construction equipment back in there at a later date to maintain it. So that thought has to be given so that future maintenance can be considered.
Sure, and it appears from the work where we are right now, we're going back tomorrow, that at the southern end is the only place that really comes into potentially a conflict.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Margaret?
Yes. The reason for the denial is that, the commission is well aware, it is not unusual for there to be a need to waive the width-to-depth ratio requirements of the subdivision regulations. However, when that is done, it is typically because other sites in the area are of a similar configuration. They're narrow, they're flag-shaped, what have you. This neighborhood right here, every lot is 100 feet wide. This will be and complies with the width-to-depth ratio requirements of the subdivision regulations. This proposal does not.
Any other questions or comments by commissioners?
Is the thought to hold over to the May 20th meeting?
Yes, I did speak with Mr. Orrell this morning. He felt confident. He already had preliminary information. He felt confident he would have all of the revised information ready to submit to staff tomorrow, which would give us adequate time to review and get the information onto the commission for the May 20th meeting. Also, I would bring to the commission's attention that you have 3 residents from the area that are opposed to this application. I did speak with one of them by phone this morning and did advise them that the applicant would be requesting a holdover. I don't know if we have anyone in attendance, though.
Does the holdover speak to the reason for denial? Is that going to be changed up?
At this point, I'm not really sure. However, from a staff perspective, I would prefer that we have accurate information to provide the commission. Right now, we know that there is an issue in the field with the survey. I would rather have accurate information to provide to you and along with our recommendation.
Thanks. I thought maybe that cures it.
Okay, thank you. The applicant has requested a holdover, which will probably be granted. However, at that day, anyone for or against will also have an opportunity to speak, but you do have a right to speak now if you so choose. So if there's anyone else here to speak for or against this, you do have a right to speak now, but you will also have an opportunity to speak at the next meeting in which this item comes up. All right, thank you. Item number 6, southwest corner of North Jackson Street, State Street, DeTonte Place subdivision, recommended for tentative approval. Ms. Latham is recused. Is the applicant present?
Trey Cordy, representing the owner as the developer. The owner's here as well, Wendy Garvis. Wendy purchased the property, I don't know, about 2 years ago, I guess, and we've been looking at different things to do with it. We talked to a bunch of the surrounding neighbors over to Nova and all that, and we finally came up with a plan that we thought that would work, that all the neighbors would accept, and that we could sell. We went through the CRC with a slightly different plan. They came back and suggested a change, which we made, and that came to this site plan here. We went over all the staff reports. We don't really have any issues with the staff reports. There are a couple things in there. Just to let you guys know, we did meet with the tree commission. We have a permit in hand to remove several trees on the site and limb one of the live oaks in the right-of-way. We've been in touch with Moz, and we have a price to bring water and sewer to each lot, and they were going to do that. We talked to Spire Gas. Same thing there. We've got all that lined up. We went before the Historical Architects Review Board. They wanted to have a design meeting to go over a few things, which we did several weeks ago. I believe in that meeting, we came to a meeting of the minds. We have not resubmitted it back because we were going to wait to make sure we have the subdivision plat approved. So as far as I know, the only last step we have is to get the final approval from the Historical Review Board, which, in my opinion, we had an agreement on that. So we're building 7 residential homes on this piece of property, and they are all sitting on 30-foot wide lots. I believe everything meets. I believe there's 2 variances in the staff report. We don't have a problem with that, which was the front setbacks, and then the dimensions of the lots themselves. I think they were at odds with the T4 zoning and the typical subdivision regulations. So I would assume that I've never done this in Mobile before, so I'm kind of new. But do we have to go back to a different meeting or board to get the variance? I guess that's a question that I would have. Other than that, don't really have any comments. Just I'll answer any questions y'all have.
Any questions from commissioners?
I have a question. Was the 7 home count, is that the original plan, or is that a revised number?
Yeah, no, the original was 7. We just had, as you're looking here in the bottom left-hand corner, you see a part. We actually had a house back there, and the part was between the other 2 houses. We ran into some fire issues and some other issues, and they suggested to move that back up on State Street, but it kept the number of lots the same.
And then there's a comment about the height. This is in an agenda item email. That's not in opposition, by the way, but it was comment about the height of the structures off the ground of 28 inches.
I believe I submitted this. We have a survey, and it has the topo on the survey. So y'all have a BFE of 11. Well, the lowest point on the site is 11 and a half. And we're going to be, so by default we have to anyway, but we're also going to be raising all the houses up about 2.5 feet off the ground. So we actually will be around 14 feet for your house elevation. So we'll be 3 feet above the comment in the staff report.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions by commissioners?
Just want to make sure I'm clear. These are just all freestanding houses. They look like they're single story. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so they're 2-story, and I guess I can see stairways in there now. So they're 2-story homes?
Yeah, and then we also have one that is a true 2-story.
Okay.
So we have basically 3 different plans. They're all 18 feet wide.
Gotcha.
With a courtyard, a private courtyard between each home. And so that's why we have it set up. So we're 1 foot off of one of the property lines and then 11 feet off the other property line. So that gives you that 11-foot private courtyard between buildings.
Okay.
Any other questions by commissioners? Anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against?
I would bring to the commission's attention the correspondence you have from Mr. Browning.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Are you here for item number 7, or the previous applicant?
Number 6.
Okay, number 6.
Oh, am I okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Kurt Wilson. I live at 4109 Ursuline Drive here in Mobile, and I'm here representing the Mobile Bar Pilots, who are the owners of the property contiguous to the south side of the subject development. And we're not necessarily here to oppose this development, but we would like to ask for some time to fairly consider the details of what is being proposed and potential effects it may have to the surrounding properties. The Bar Pilots have made a significant investment in their property, moving their corporate headquarters there, and I would like to just be sure they continue to be protected. And the reason that I'm here, due to the nature of the Bar Pilots operations, a recent change in ownership, and the unfortunate hospitalization and surgery of the partner who handles their real estate matters. They were not aware of the pending application until 2 days ago when they discovered a sign in the bushes on the property next door. So anyway, after scrambling a little bit to find out the details, we've realized that the proposal would create a 7-lot subdivision on 0.4 acres. It would allow up to 10 access driveways in an area that presently is restricted to a maximum of 3, and it would allow for the creation of seven single-family residences plus a parking lot on what is now a pretty small piece of land. But adding to the concern of the bar pilots, this property, as well as the bar pilots' property, is presently encumbered by restrictive covenants. And if approved, the re-subdivision would effectively destroy the protection the bar pilots have. At the present time, it requires 80% consent of the lot owners to modify what's in place now, that both parties agree to abide under when they purchase their respective lots. The creation of the approval of this subdivision would then reduce the bar pilots to 1 out of 8 lots, giving this site a supermajority and leaving the bar pilots without any input to protect their investment going forward. Again, there's no intent here to try and oppose what is being proposed, merely to find out more about it and try and structure some modification to the restrictive covenants that both parties can live with to protect their common interest as we go forward. Again, I'm not a pilot, I'm representative of the pilots, but they are ready, willing, and able to sit down and talk with the developer to try and do that. And I'm available for any questions if anybody has any.
The covenants would be civil matter, correct?
They would, I would think.
I see. Okay, I can understand. Because that's something we
Correct. I will be. Well, let me put it this way. I would oppose this vehemently if action needs to be taken today to approve it. We'd rather have an opportunity to sit down with the developer and reach some common ground. That attempt was made about a year ago on a previous effort that the development did not move forward, and subsequently the lots were put up for sale. That did not materialize, and now we're at this. So the door's been open before for the parties to sit down. Why it hasn't happened this time, I can't explain, but I think that's the logical solution.
You said at the beginning, there's a delay because whoever handles your real estate matters is unavailable.
The pilot who is assigned with handling their real estate matters, yes, sir.
So how long until somebody in your organization can handle that?
I would say within a week, perhaps this week, because he has been released from the hospital as of yesterday and does not go back to work till Tuesday. I'm speaking a little out of turn, but I would think he could be immediately available.
Because it kind of seems like we're putting on official business because an organization didn't meet their own obligations. So if it can happen within a week, then if the applicant was answerable for that.
Can I ask you is there anyone else that's in those kind of covenants that you make reference to?
No, ma'am.
It's just, and where exactly is the
Yeah.
bar pilots? I'm just curious on the site map.
Just south of the subject. There it is, right there.
That side.
So it's just where it looks to us, it looks like the land is currently two vacant lots and then the bar pilot lot. So the subdivision is just 3 lots.
Correct.
Okay.
And you do think in a week, so our next meeting is what did we say, the 28th? So you think I'm not saying that you'll resolve it, but that you would have the opportunity, you're asking for the opportunity to sit down and meet and discuss?
I would. I think that's very fair.
We've heard from others that would like more opportunity to get clarification and mitigate what could be mitigated. It's nice to have the homes down there, I mean, I just see that as a positive, but I understand. I don't know what kind of leverage you're talking about as far as, at one time it was equal, that was one big lot, is what you're saying? So the covenants took into account anything that went on there?
The covenants cover 2 lots. Now, at one point in time, I think there were 3, but the covenants extend to just the subject property and the bar pilot property.
Looks like there's 3 lots, but.
Like there's dots, yeah.
Any other questions by commissioners?
You know, I'm not sure if the subject is 1 or 2. At one time, the tax plat showed 2. Yeah. The dotted,
They're recorded, so somebody interested in the land, when they either closed or whatever, would have been given those covenants. I would
yes.
assume.
Yeah, when the pilots acquired the property, they were given the covenants and they built within those requirements. And I think the developer in this matter acquired his property subsequent to that, when they were still in place.
That's what we meet with discussing.
Thank you,
Hey,
sir.
Doug, is it common, or have you ever seen it before, where people circumvent covenants by subdividing?
That's a good question. I was thinking about that when Kurt mentioned it. The restrictive covenants should just say 2 lots. And I don't think by subdividing one into 2, 3, or 4 lots, you could create more votes for that initial lot. That's my assumption right now.
That's what I was thinking.
But they are creating new lots, though. That's
But not 8 more votes, or 7 or 6 more votes. I don't think what Kurt's saying is legally probably correct, but I think, if there's an issue and they need to talk to work it out, that's fine.
So dividing this property into 7 lots is not something we're doing.
No, we are, yes, I'm sorry. What Alan was asking was on the restrictive covenants, I think we said there were 3 lots or 2 lots originally? So say
Yeah.
there's 3, and by subdividing one of those lots into 5 lots does not create 5 more votes. That's what he was saying for his restrictive covenant issue. Has nothing to do with what's before y'all today. Just a reason for his concern on whether or not they're going to oppose it.
I think it might.
Your lawyer will have to figure that out.
Yeah, I
Depends
agree.
Depends on how the covenants are written.
And if not, then that goes out the window. But the document clearly calls the owners of the lots, not whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 8.
It depends on how the covenants are
Yeah.
structured.
And since we don't deal with covenants, but we often deal with holding something up so people can get clarity.
Right.
So that when they argue their points, they know
Yeah.
exactly what they're arguing for or against.
And I think with the previous development attempt, the developer approached the bar pilots for relief from this. So I think there was concern at that time that this would in fact trigger a violation of the restrictive covenants.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The applicant has an opportunity to respond to comments if they so choose.
Like I said, when I first presented this, over the last 2 years, we met with all the, not all, but almost every one of the surrounding property owners, one of which was the bar pilots. So he's been misinformed by his client. So we have sent many letters. We've sent 3 or 4 letters. No one will really call us back. It's been very hard. We did one time talk to Patrick. I forgot Patrick's name. He was at the time in charge or something, maybe Alexander. Anyway, we tried to have him 3 different times. We tried to have a meeting, no response. So I'm actually shocked why they're having a problem. Not even sure why they have a problem with it. Can we go back to the zoning just real quick? As you'll see, he is correct in that. Let's see if I can explain it. We're on lots 2 and 3 of the Demopolis Place subdivision. The bar pilots are on lot 1. For some reason, the covenants are only applied to lots 1 and 2. Why the 3 got excluded, we don't know. But the reason what he's claiming that we're going to get more votes, we don't care about that. We had proposed that we split completely apart for one big reason is our zonings are completely different. They're in zone T5, we're in zone T4. So therefore, what we can do and what they can do, but just by right with the city is totally, is different. So that was one of the reasons we just want to not have them tell us what to do, and therefore I don't want to tell them what to do either. So that's in their response, and I have no idea why they would be opposed to this. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
And we would rather not hold it over. Let me put it that way. I'm coming up here. We would rather not hold it over. If we have to, I guess we could, but we would request that y'all go ahead and vote per staff report.
Margaret, what is the difference in what they can do between T4 and T5?
We could go through the list, but there is a definite difference between what is allowed in a T4 and a T5. T5 is more commercial in nature than T4. Additionally, your development standards are different between a T4 and a T5 as well. So there's a difference between what you can do and how you can do it based on which side of that line you fall on.
We have less rights. In T4, we have less rights than what T5 has. They can go to 3 stories, do all kind of businesses. We're limited to 2 stories, pretty much just residential development, very limited on anything else. So,
I have one last question. Since the restrictions don't matter to you, would you stipulate that you waive any extra votes or whatever to resolve that question?
That's fine. I don't want to tell them, I have no desire to tell them what to do or what they can in the future, no.
So when you come in to subdivide, your covenants could state that for future owners?
Yeah, so we have, in the site plan, we have the driveway coming off of State Street and into a parking lot. And it's a private parking, and that driveway will be gated. So that parking is only for our residents. We have 2 parking spots per lot, and then in addition, they have the off-street parking they can obtain. He mentioned we have the right to put a driveway for every lot. Well, that's not what we're doing. We have the one driveway off of State Street that comes into the general parking, and then the corner lot does have one additional street cut for a parking spot there. That's it. So even though we have a right to do 7, we're only doing the 2. And we will have our own covenant restrictions. I'm going to go off that because the common area has to be maintained by all 7 property owners. So we will have a separate property owner association. Within that association, every one of those 7 would have equal voting rights. But as it applies to the bar pilots, I don't care. And I'm kind of questioning why they care, as long as we're meeting all y'all's guidelines.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So could it be part of the planning approval that they would waive those voting rights if in the occasion that there were extra votes? Is it so in the occasion that somehow they do end up having 8 votes, is it possible that part of the planning approval is that they waive any extra votes?
We can't have any say-so whatsoever over the private restrictive covenants.
Well,
Okay.
let me say this. I'm a developer over in Baldwin County and have done dozens and dozens of developments that y'all all be very well aware of. So I'm an expert at this. And we, our covenants and restrictions, I can say this, we would, however we need to say it, we would agree to, we would not increase the number of votes. We would just stick with the 2 votes.
And you would rather,
I guess my question is, I guess he's asking for a holdover. I guess my question is, he never said why.
to have the opportunity to sit down with you and discuss concerns or issues they might have.
And
after that
and
happens,
we
he might-
reached out to him 3 to 4, not him, but the bar pilots 3 or 4 times, and we're not granted a meeting. So we did
Understand.
everything we could.
Okay, so you would rather that it just be voted on today and not be held over?
We would prefer it to be voted today because staff approved tentative approval.
Okay.
And without any specific reason for them to deny it. I mean, I'd like to know what that reason is. I'm just real concerned why there's something, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
But the use of the property automatically doesn't level the playing field because they're sitting in different classifications. So it would seem odd that this body would hold up based on the staff's report for approval. I mean, other than giving time for conversations, which we often do. And they're not asking for a lot of time, but we have done that. This sounds like a good way to maybe resolve anything that could be ongoing, but, because we can't get into the covenants. I mean, that would be like, that's not even a voluntary use restriction. That's nothing to do. The covenants are private civil matter.
Thank you. New planning approval applications, item number 7, 60 North Ann Street. Recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Yes. Applicant is present and in agreement. Is there anyone else here to speak for or against this? Thank you. New sidewalk waiver applications. 1503 and 1529 Wolf Ridge Road. Waiver is being recommended by staff to be denied. Is the applicant present?
Hey, good afternoon. CJ Small, 951 Marine Street. I'm not Bradford, Roy Bradford, the applicant, but I am the owner of the property. First of all, let me just state that we are not trying to get out of the sidewalk. If you look at the maps and the pictures that was presented, the way that the sidewalks is currently now to be built is leaving from a bridge which is off of Wood Ridge Road and is going upward on a slope. Once it go up on that slope, the slope is several feet tall, then it goes back down the slope. Currently, the residents that do walk up and down Wolf Ridge Road, they walk on the flat surface of Wolf Ridge Road. They do not go up the slope. My big concern as in if the sidewalk is put up the slope besides on the main drag of Wolf Ridge Road is that we may have kids that go up there and start horse playing, or that sidewalk would invite the kids to go up there and start horse playing and play around and potentially fall on Wolf Ridge Road to potentially getting hit. So we was trying to see if we can get this submitted as far as, and we can just keep the sidewalk basically on the same level of Wolf Ridge Road besides going up a slope, like a hilly slope, and then coming right back down a hilly slope and everything.
So this is a request for a partial waiver?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Hey, can the staff, I mean, obviously we can see from the one drawing that the property has a lot of topography there, but what were the staff's findings when they looked at the right-of-way where a sidewalk typically would fit? And is there a beat-down walking path, which can sometimes be customary?
Yeah, it appears out there that, what we allow is for that sidewalk to be built in the right-of-way, but if not, then it can be built up on the private property. And it looks like once you get to the west side of that ditch along along Wolf Ridge Road, up on that ridge, there is property that, a flat enough property that the sidewalk appears that it could be built. The one area that may present a problem would be where they have their detention pond about the middle where their new entrance is coming. Just to the south of their new entrance, they have a pipe coming out of their pond. So getting over that may present a little difficulty. That's what we saw.
So you're saying some of the sidewalk would be constructible on the existing right-of-way, but some of the sidewalk may have to encroach into private property and have a sidewalk easement?
Yes.
To be constructed?
Is that something the applicant would be interested in doing, is coming onto the private property to keep it safer?
Yeah, again, we are not against sidewalks, period. The point is when you're going upward, to me, that's to be a waste of money because there's no residents, going to go up a hill, then go right back down a hill to walk on the sidewalk. Currently, the residents are now walking straight on the grass itself, and just not trying to just waste no money, just by going up a hill. If we can just pretty much just stay flatward, that would be fine. Again, we're not against sidewalks, but if you go and take the sidewalks up the hill, I believe that's an invitation for kids to go and horseplay and potential fall on Wolf Ridge Road.
Is there currently a lot of foot traffic even on that road?
I apologize.
Is there even a lot of foot traffic on that road?
It's not that much, but you do have a subdivision, which is on the right-hand, I think, Botaria. They may walk up to the gas station and, walk back, but it's not that much foot traffic. No, sir.
Generally, the telltale sign is if there's a footpath that's already walked into the ground. Mhm. And I'll say it's not been uncommon for this commission to force sidewalks if they've meandered into the private property for a constructability standpoint for the applicant to then provide that sidewalk easement that lets it fit where it can best fit and not have to and not be so complicated to construct. Sometimes when we get these, there's great big huge ditches and there's just nowhere to physically construct it without the applicant spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to close the ditches in. So in those cases, we have required the applicant to build that sidewalk into private property. I wish we could see a picture of it to see what the topography actually looks like.
I mean, and you can see how long that frontage is, and it changes from one end to the other.
Yeah.
It's all different.
So you have places where it's constructible on the right-of-way, but places for it to be reasonably constructible, because maybe the right-of-way falls off, you would have to meander into the private property.
And I believe some pictures was submitted, if not mistaken, of several, with the application, if I'm not mistaken, of several angles of that particular area that's in question.
But your willingness is, if a sidewalk could be constructed, you would be willing to see an easement go onto the private property to make that a safer navigation?
Yes, if it would be safer, yes, ma'am.
Any other questions by commissioners? Anyone else here to speak for or against this? Thank you, sir. Group applications. Item number 9, 808 Magnolia Road, Redemption Place subdivision. Subdivision and planning approval, both recommended for tentative approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Applicant is present and in agreement. Is there anyone else here to speak for or against this? Okay. Yep.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Amanda, and I actually live at the 800 Magnolia Road. And what I don't understand is that there's already so many churches in this area, and there is also a lot of foot traffic, and there's also a lot of apartment buildings in this area. So I really don't know what they're trying to do as far as building a church and a subdivision next door to me.
We don't understand exactly what it's gonna be, and who, are they gonna sell these houses? Are they gonna rent them? Is it, I mean, what is House of Rescue Ministry? Well, I've looked it up and I can't find anything. We would like to know what's going in next to us.
You're speaking for this? Are you the applicant?
No, I'm the owner.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So, okay. My name is George Katranis, and I have an interest in the property. My family's owned it for the past 35 years or so. Probably about 35 years ago, we purchased the apartment complex Sky Valley Apartments. Now it's a different name, but it's just north of that adjacent property, I believe. And we purchased a few parcels around, and this was one of the parcels, which was known as 804 Magnolia Road as well as 808 Magnolia Road. About 20 years ago, we sold the apartments, and probably about 15 years ago, we started trying to market the property to sell it. We didn't own the apartments anymore and really had a couple rental houses. And on this parcel, there was a vacant portion, which was 804 for 35 years, I believe. And then there was another rental house, which we had for a few years on the 808 portion. On the 808, we actually donated the house to the fire department, and they did a training mission where they burnt the house down and trained the fire department. We've actually been trying to market the property and have contacted D.H. Horton as well as other home builders to see if they could put a subdivision of houses in the area, and none of them were interested in it. The parcels of land are large, but not large enough for somebody like a D.H. Horton to want to come in and do houses. And what we found was, like this house, or this property, it's 2.6 acres. It's really too large to put one house on, and it just didn't make economic sense to put a few small houses or something like that on there. The church had an interest in, and we made a contract on it, so now the church is looking at purchasing it, and we are for it. I think it would be good for the church to make an investment in the neighborhood. I know in the past there has been some homeless people that have been on the property, and this will help clean it up and maintain it. That would make it a little safer for the neighborhood, I think, if there wasn't that homeless people living on that parcel. And it would also keep the property from having blight or being overgrown or not developed if it was converted and sold to the church. I would hope that this would also help the neighborhood, perhaps spark some new investment, either residential or commercial or something like that, to help support it. And if y'all have any questions, be happy to try to answer it. Thank you.
Any questions from commissioners?
Still hadn't told us what it's gonna be. Is it residential houses, single houses? Is it a church?
No,
I mean,
it's a church.
Is it just a church? Are you bringing in homeless people, drug people? I mean, what we're asking? We want to know.
It's just a church. Maybe the owners can speak to that.
Good afternoon. My name is Nakia Brown. I live at 8121 Colleton Drive South. I am the pastor's wife of the House of Rescue Church Ministries, and it is just a church. We have been in existence. We just celebrated our 5th year anniversary. We started in a house, and the church has been growing. We now rent property off of Glenwood Street, and we're outgrowing that property. We've seen this property maybe 2 or 3 years ago and just kind of waited and checked out some other areas, and we've come back to this property. We are familiar with that location. My husband actually owns a house around the corner from that community, or from that location, so we're very familiar with the community, and we love that property. And so just to answer the questions, we are just a church. From time to time, we do look to do some outreach that is key to our existence, so we may feed the homeless from time to time and do different things of that nature, but we have no intent of doing any type of residential community there.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions by commissioners? All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
How many houses they plan on putting on there? Is it just
There are no,
Sir,
there are no houses, sir.
no houses.
No houses. The subdivision means that they're just joining 2 lots into one.
Okay, we're just trying to make sure, because it says subdivision, right?
That just means that they're re-subdividing 2 lots and making the 2 lots 1 lot.
Okay.
But that's just a term, but it's not an actual home subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else here to speak for or against this? Thank you. Item number 10, Beaver Creek subdivision. Subdivision and zoning both recommended for approval.
Jerry Bird, Bird Surveying Company, for the owner. As stated, the owner was planning to build a 6,000 square foot building for his existing business, which is general maintenance and engine repairs on 18-wheeler tractors. Their normal hours of operation, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. We position the building so as to lessen an impact of riding down Rangeline Road. It'll be the service bays open to the rear where there's woods behind them. There's several other buildings on down Rangeline Road at Rabbit Creek Drive. That's RV storage, that's metal buildings with their doors visible from Rangeline. The changing conditions is one of the reasons that we've asked for this. I mean, the city recognized this area as a changing area when they annexed it in to the city, I don't know, 10 years ago, I guess. But, I mean, this is Hamilton Boulevard, Rangeline Road, up to the railroad track. This is the site here. All of the colors are businesses. You're familiar with what businesses are all along Rangeline. Also, the number 3 reason on it is the lack of I-1 zoning in this area. There's actually, well, excuse me, there is one up by the railroad that's occupied by several businesses. The I-1 zoning came about purely because that's what the zoning code says it has to be. Now, you can take the same building, you can pull cars in or pickup trucks in and work on them. You can do that in a B3 or B4. But when the semi-tractor all of a sudden got bigger, it has to be in an I-1. It's worked on inside the building. I don't quite understand the reasoning behind that, but that's the way the zoning is, and that's why it has to be our I-1. The building, the proposed building, is, the location of it is actually 300 feet or more to the property line of the back property line of a subdivision across Todd Acres Drive. And there's woods in between Todd Acres Drive and that subdivision. So that won't be an issue as far as seeing the building from that side. I don't think I have to tell you that Range Line Road is heavily traveled, and it's a major thoroughfare, which is what businesses need to locate on. And of course, the industrial park across Range Line Road, semi-trailers come in and out of that area all the time. And I think every business on Range Line is serviced by semi-trailers and at some time or the other. But we felt like that this was a good use. We took the property on the subdivision and left the residential lots around the perimeter on the north and partway down on Todd Acres Drive as a shield from the across the street neighbors. But we didn't really think that this was such a bad use with businesses, all work being done on the inside of the building.
Thank you. Any questions by commissioners? All right, is there anyone else here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against?
Hi, my name is Melissa Dickinson, and I'm a current HOA president for River Oaks Landing and have been a resident of the Todd Acres and River Oaks Landing community for almost 14 years. I'm also a residential realtor with Roberts Brothers. So when this proposed rezoning came about, I was both concerned as a resident and a real estate professional for many reasons. First, I want to tell you a little bit about the life in our little waterfront community. Todd Acres and River Oaks Landing weave and connect alongside Rabbit Creek, where many homeowners enjoy the fantastic views and fantastic access and beautiful views of our waterways. We are 155 homes, anywhere from families to retirees, and are a very friendly, active, and supportive community. Golf carts, bicycles, runners, and strollers are seen in droves each day, throughout the day, all in that area. We enjoy egg hunts, food trucks, block parties, quarantine bear hunts, cookouts, pool parties together. The kids play basketball in the cul-de-sac, they bike to the river to fish, and they play together outside. We also have a big Halloween that we invite you all to join us for this year. We have over 500 trick-or-treaters come through our neighborhood each and every year. The Millikins have a cotton candy machine, another one has popcorn. They get a drink from a Capri Sun from another house, and you'll have dinner before dark. We also have cow trains, and we have hay rides and all kind of things through there. To the matter at hand, though, in my opinion, this is an obvious request for spot zoning. That is the process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different than the surrounding area and for the benefit of such property owner and to the detriment of the others. Mr. Weller's desire to prove that the zoning variance is beneficial to the surrounding area and to those people falls drastically short of doing so. In fact, I feel it does just the opposite. Zoning was created to protect our health, safety, and the welfare of the public. Undesirable land uses tend to affect our three senses, our sight, hearing, and smell, as well as our health and safety. Our only access and our point of egress for this entire community is right at that intersection. There would be no way of entering and exiting our homes without being affected by the large trucks traveling in and out of this business. It's not just a concern for traffic, but more so for the safety of all of our community members and the children that ride and walk about. Not just that, but knowing that trucks and drivers could sometimes be there overnight with large pieces of equipment is another huge safety concern. As a realtor, one of my concerns is also the visual impact of the area with an average home sales price of over $350,000. Industrial sites are one of the least desirable land uses, and in my opinion, it would be a blight to our residential space. In 2009, a study of the impact of industrial sites on residential property values revealed that the distance to an industrial site has a statistically significant negative effect on the value of those residential properties by as much as 25%. Regardless of the exact footage between his business and our homes, the impact will be hugely detrimental to our property values. Our area is currently classified as a low-density residential land designation according to Mobile's land use and plan and map. That means less than 6 dwellings per acre of land. These plans and maps are designed to protect our city. The desire is that the development correlates with the development around it, not for an industrial area to be plopped down in the middle of our residential neighborhood. The proposed site is bound on 3 sides by residential zoning. The 4th side to the west is a B5 business zoning, but that is across 4 lanes of Rangeline Road. The fact is that if this is approved and a business is built, they could always close or relocate in the future. The zoning is permanent. There's no telling what would move in next. I'm not sure why his desire is to be right there necessarily. I feel there's plenty of other real estate available. By no means are we seeking to hurt the man's business, but we ask that he conducts the business in an area with like businesses and the appropriate zoning. The application falls short of proving that changing the conditions makes this desirable, or the land is needed, or the reclassification of the building site is necessary. I urge you to put our community's safety, happiness, enjoyability, and property values above this request for rezoning to save one business a little bit of money. The business should be located in an industrial area where they belong and not in our front yards. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Debbie Foster, Dog River Clearwater Revival, 4507 Park Road, 36605. I am here on behalf of Dog River and behalf of the residents of the Todd Acres community in opposition of both the re-subdivision and the rezoning of the above-referenced property based on water quality concerns for the lower Dog River watershed. Our concerns are explained in this document, and I'm afraid you got them late, one of those that runs late a lot. But the proposed site is one of the lowest elevations in the lower Dog River watershed. As such, a real and present danger exists of diesel fuel contamination to nearby water bodies and the groundwater supply. How does the applicant intend to mitigate runoff pollutants before they reach the existing vegetation with such contaminants that will harm the natural growth? Loss of natural tree and critical root zones that are holding soils in place, loss of vital wetlands through increased impervious surfaces, and harm to the endangered species like the West Indian manatee who frequent these waters. As you know, Dog River Clearwater Revival is a 26-year-old nonprofit organization whose sole mission is the improved water quality of and access to Mobile's urban river and its tributaries. We have been overseeing water quality monitoring in these waters for over 20 years. We use Alabama Water Watch protocols to provide consistent and credible information to area agencies of early indicators and trends of our water bodies in question, and in this case, that would be Rattlesnake Bayou and Rabbit Creek. Both are located in the Dog River watershed. While these are not identified necessarily as pristine waterways, a study we did in advance of our Dog River Watershed Management Plan in 2017 in the Todd Acres area did show pristine conditions of those water bodies. They had heavily buffered, stable banks and dense vegetation, and you can cite that in our plan. As you can see in the stuff that I've given you provided in the map, the property in question is roughly only 550 feet from Rattlesnake Bayou. It's a direct feed to Rabbit Creek. Given another hurricane like Katrina or Hurricane George, those historic floods that we continue to see happening more frequently, the spillage of fluids from such a business is a real and present danger. Given the naturally heavily forested nature of this property in question, how does the applicant intend to mitigate contaminated runoff pollutants before they reach the existing vegetation? You'll note on page 3 of the handout an existing beautiful cypress swamp that only exists because of the pristine waters there. Removal of any vegetation on this property, any of this low-lying area, will cause water contamination. Cypress swamps are important to flood mitigation, acting like a giant sponge. These wetlands absorb water and they trap sediments. The cypress trees' extended raised root system help this process by slowing and spreading floodwaters as they flow through the swamp, allowing water to soak into the soil. Again, given the aged natural nature and function of this property in question, any disturbance of this critical root zone will set in motion soil degradation, resulting in flooding, sediment flow, and in this case, a real threat of contaminated sediment flow. Changing land use, you see on page 4, what has happened in the Dog River watershed between 1974 and 2016 in this area is phenomenal. Yes, it is a changing area, but that does not mean that it needs to change to I-1. That is the least amount of use that needs to be in an area that is only 16 feet above flood level. You can see that Todd Boulevard is an unpaved road. Any changing of this landscape to impervious surface will again increase stormwater flow to the nearby waterways and increasing flooding potential for those nearby neighbors. Besides the paving of the road, addition of proposed residential and commercial lots provided through this proposed subdivision will increase impervious surfaces, if nothing more than by roofs and by driveways. Any degradation in the water quality of these nearby water bodies will have a negative impact on the endangered West Indian manatee. The map provided to us by the Dauphin Island Sea Lab, our partners with the Manatee Sighting Network, shows you that this is an incredibly well-visited and populated area by the manatee. They're already in this year, and they stay until about November. So it is for these reasons and many others that we support the neighbors, and we ask for denial of both the re-subdivision and the industrial use. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lee Eilers. My wife and I have lived at 4228 Todd Boulevard for the past 27 years. This is across the street from the subject property. I strongly oppose the requested rezoning. Todd Acres is a 100% single-family residential area. The rezoning application for a light industrial district is completely out of character for this subdivision. It will bring pollution, noise, street damage, and smell associated with a diesel repair facility. It will be located at the only entrance and exit to Todd Acres. The heavy trucks will damage not only the paved streets, but the unpaved city-maintained portion of Todd Boulevard. The tract of land has been undeveloped since the inception of Todd Acres in 1955. It is now essentially a refuge area for wildlife. The tract of land has a wetland area on it that drains under Todd Boulevard through a culvert to the east wetland side of my property and into Rattlesnake Bayou. Presently, the wetland area is fed by runoff from the surrounding wooded property and a large amount of runoff from Rangeline Road. The culvert may not be large enough for additional runoff expected from the addition of paved area for the proposed facility and residential lots. Also, the increased runoff may cause erosion to my property. Any pollution from a diesel facility will affect the Rattlesnake Bayou water quality. Manatees and other water life swim past the discharge area of the wetland. The property is also in a floodplain area. Very high tides can back up into the wetland area. The diesel repair facility will have a negative effect on property values, especially for the homes adjacent to the property. I urge you to deny this application. Thank you for your time.
We can have one more against.
Good afternoon. My name is Cecilia Kane. I've been I'm at 4128 Todd Boulevard. I've been over there 38 years. Other residents, 40 years, 30 years plus that are adjacent to that property. I have recently forwarded to the committee a petition signed by over 98% of our residents requesting that this rezoning be denied. As per the other speakers, we have a lovely community, bike riders, joggers, people riding their golf carts. Our children were raised there. Now we have our grandchildren coming back and to this area. I forward to through via Maria York pictures of our community along with the manatees information. Also, I have given you pictures of the area in question as far as our roads, the wetlands when they were dry, when there were heavy rains that overflow the dirt road on Todd Boulevard that goes into Rattlesnake Bayou and Rabbit Creek. Excuse me. Todd Acres community voted to annex into the city to protect our rights as a residential community and to preserve it against undesirable businesses. This business is not compatible to our residents and the base of the ordinance of your city ordinance. It does not meet the requirements. Both Lee and Deb statements about the manatees and the parcels of the wetlands has been justified, that we do not need something that will further have runoff that will contaminate Rabbit Creek and Rattlesnake Bayou. There's land available all down Rangeline and across on the west side of the city's Todd Acres Light Industrial area. A 6,000 square foot building with only 2 workers is not needed in this subdivision. It's undesirable by our residents. Additionally, the heavy traffic of 18-wheelers and other similar equipment will further deteriorate the unpaved road on Todd Boulevard that the city maintains. The unpaved road has a sewer main line that goes from from Rangeline Road, goes to the intersection of Todd Boulevard and Todd Acres Drive. That sewer main is 7 feet deep. With the heavy equipment that can ride on that property, especially during wet time when we have the heavy rains, can actually, break that sewer line pressure-wise, and it can go undetected for a long time until it either, 1, you have a cave-in on the road, or 2, that it has already entered into our wetlands, meaning Rattlesnake Bayou, Rabbit Creek, when people start smelling it. Then, of course, the malls will have to be notified, and then it'll have to be repaired. Lastly, I want to talk about the traffic. We do not have a traffic light at Rangeline and Todd Boulevard. We have already had numerous wrecks there where people are coming in from the light industrial area, the light, meaning 18-wheelers. They're coming across 2 lanes to the 3rd lane exiting that area. If you have a business in our area, they're going to have to come across 4 lanes, and there'll be numerous more accidents there. We appreciate your time, your efforts. I do appreciate Marie York that received all of our documents for your consideration, and we want you to deny any type of rezoning of our property. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions by commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I would remind the commission you received a packet of information yesterday, and then you have updated information as well from concerned area residents.
Does the applicant wish to respond?
Of course, the development of the proposed business would be constructed with all federal, state, and local regulations met as far as whatever oil containment or disposal of whatever oils and fuel that needed to be. The subdivision is recommended for approval. There's no reason not to address that separately, and we would certainly appreciate an approval on both applications for your consideration.
Great. Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments by commissioners? Yeah, Ms.
Staff has recommended approval of the subdivision. Is there any thought to saying that that would not be appropriate since the main reason for the subdivision is to put in a rezoning? So if there is, you're recommending denial of rezoning for a lot of the reasons that we've also heard from
Correct.
citizens that live and breathe in the area. So I know there are certain guidelines for subdivisions that we have to follow.
Mhm.
And if any body is opposed, you have to go to court, which is not the appeal council, it's based on going to circuit court, which makes it very difficult. But, and I guess this is a legal question, if every reason not to rezone it is there, do we have to approve the subdivision based on any kind of parameters? Because it makes codes or, this doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it meets the minimum requirements, and if the rezoning is denied, they simply have 8 single-family residential lots.
And the big thing in the center that almost begs commercial.
But they would only have 8 single-family residential lots. They would have the choice not to record the plat, but if the zoning is not approved, they have 8 single-family residential lots. They also have to either, A, vacate that very large right-of-way that goes across that property, or they will have to modify their lot layout because it would completely eliminate Lot 1.
We do not have to vacate. I provided a deed to him when he purchased. I provided a deed to y'all when my owner purchased. He purchased that right-of-way. What you see is his.
So it's been vacated?
It's been vacated.
Okay. So he would have 8 single-family residential
Yeah.
lots.
Does it behoove the planning commission to listen to the issues of the conditions that are there on this? You know, it's not a normal piece of property. I mean, it serves as a wetlands area. I mean, I know that person has a right to develop it, but should it be developed and come in as a whole unit that is residential, in keeping with everything that's on that side of the free, well, it's not a freeway, but a range line?
It is a multi-lane highway that's over 350 feet wide. However, you know, the commission, unless there is a reason for denial of the subdivision, you know, it does not meet minimum requirements or something of that nature, there's no reason to deny the subdivision. It will not allow the applicant to move forward with the rezoning. And if that property is going to be developed, the only thing it could be developed with are single-family homes. Now, I understand what you're saying. The 8th lot is...
You're not putting any character into that subdivision.
It's a legal question. It meets the legal requirements, and just because we don't like the zoning he wants is not sufficient to turn down the subdivision.
Even though a subdivision normally has a character.
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not up to us to decide whether a neighborhood or subdivision has character. It meets the minimum standards. And you have to rely on safety or traffic of putting 8 residential lots there in denying it.
And then one for staff. If the subdivision gets approved like this, and then the applicant decides that isn't the best configuration, he comes back to this, or she comes back to this body to reconfigure it again. I think I understand where the challenges might be, but if the applicant, I mean, it's just, the subdivision is entirely separate from the zoning, as you've said, and so how he or she chooses for their lines to be is a personal choice.
All right, thank you.
But,
You have a very stable neighborhood, and you have a lot of character, and
Subdividing, I hear where you're coming from, but subdividing 8 residential lots is not going to affect every as this part.
and if the applicant does not withdraw his application for a subdivision, I'm not sure that there's, I mean, they're within the rules.
Thank you. Item number 11, 1600 Yeen Street, Mall C.C. Williams dewatering plant, both PUD and planning approval, both recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Yes, sir. Applicant is present and in agreement. Is there anyone else here to speak for or against this? Thank you. And item number 12, 2785 and 2789 McVeigh Drive, Thomas LLC, is PUD and planning approval, both recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Applicant is present and in agreement. Anyone else here to speak for or against this? Thank you. That concludes our public deliberation. Public side will now go into deliberation. Beginning with item number 1 of our holdovers, 508 and 518 Dolphin Street, for planning approval. There is no staff recommendation. Is there a motion on this item?
Mr. Chairman, if we were to approve this planning approval, if we were to put restrictions on it or whatever, do we need to come up with some findings of fact for that?
Yes, you would, and you can use the findings of facts that you have on item number. We'll help y'all with that.
Well, there's some on item number 6 that might.
Yes.
That might fit.
The church.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Well, yeah, I do have one, I guess, before a motion, I do have a question. What kind of restriction can we place on the noise outside of from the speakers?
You can put restrictions on the speakers or the use of that outside facility. If you think playing wiffle ball at midnight's going to be too much of a distraction, you can say no outdoor activities past a certain time period.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The speakers, I think, with the noise, the speakers, you just up to the noise ordinance.
Right.
I don't think we can put more restrictions than the noise ordinance already has in place.
And basically, by the way they brought it forward, it's a restaurant. This happens to have a bar in it. No different than some of the other restaurants downtown that happen to have bars internal to them. I guess that's the way it was presented. Is that what?
Yeah.
It is
unique concept, but that's what how they were applying.
And that's why I was asking questions, because the way his application read, it was 2 different uses, 2 different loads for capacity. but really, it's all one. You can call it a restaurant, you can call it a bar, whatever. It's going to be people in there drinking and eating till 2 in the morning, 200 and whatever, many people.
46.
Yeah.
Well, I would move to approve, subject to staff recommendations, with the findings of fact, what was it? A, B, and C, copied from, I believe it's item number 6. Is that what I said? Okay, great. And then adding a restriction that there would be no outdoor activities past midnight?
Is that on a specific days of the week, or?
That's a
Deal with
great
those
question.
residents there, it should be
I think it would be 7 days a week, wouldn't it? I mean,
organized activities.
yeah. Because the residents don't leave on the weekends, probably.
The idea that there's a building adjacent that does have some way of being part of this that isn't part of this, I mean, that's what the opponent represented. What do we know about that?
I didn't see it on the slide.
I do not see it on this plan.
What's the adjacent building no work on Cedar?
That's
That-
the Cedar Street Social Club.
Right, but he's claiming that they have egress and ingress.
Yeah, I've only been in that building one time, and I didn't see that there was any kind of access between the buildings.
There's none
There's
shown
not-
on this plan.
There's not any.
The only access to the Cedar Street Social Club I'm aware of is, shows on that door on the north side, northeast corner. That and, of course, the big garage-type doors on Cedar Street. There's no, I don't see any direct access between this project and that building on this plan.
Mr. Anderson, I have a question for you. If this application had been for 2 separate buildings without a hallway in between, one a restaurant and one a bar, then would, with the capacities, I guess this is for Ms. Pappas, not Mr. Anderson, would because of the district that it's in, one would have passed and one would have been possibly denied unless we overrode the zoning, correct?
That is correct. The occupancy load of over 100 would have still put it under the Planning Commission's purview.
But if they were 2 separate entities, would the bar portion, not being treated as a restaurant, have been allowed in this district? Or is this a vehicle to get around it being in a little bit different district?
Well, the key issue is that a bar or a restaurant, if the occupant load exceeds 100, has to get planning approval in this particular zoning district downtown.
Okay.
So even if they were separate entities, if individually either one had over
more than
100,
100.
that one would have to come through.
But not both?
Correct. Correct.
But they're creating that energy to interconnect. I mean, they made no other indication of that.
That's correct. They have made the choice to connect.
And that therefore changes.
It places both of them in front of you.
I understand, I just wanted clarification.
So what's the motion we have before us, Mr. Anderson?
I move to approve, subject to staff recommendations, adding with the findings of facts, A, B, and C from item number 6, copied. 6.
It might be 7.
Do what?
It might be item 7
Oh, from number 7? Yeah, let me make sure.
in our agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, number 7 from that was the church.
Yeah.
Right.
And then one of your conditions was no organized outside activities after midnight.
After midnight, right.
I second that motion.
Properly moved and seconded.
I have another question about the building that's also under the same ownership. Was that given a bump up too?
It has an occupancy load, I believe, less than 100.
So it's never come.
Correct.
Right, when the Cedar Street Social Club was coming before staff for review, they purposely did the interior design to maintain below 100 occupancy.
But their square footage someday could have, because doesn't it technically go off of the fire code, how many people can assemble?
It's the building and the fire code, and it's based on the classification of how it's used.
But we
Determines the load.
created a resident, try to blend a residential with a commercial area, and so far, so good. And I just think there's something to be said about the stability of an area. And I don't know how you count people that are out on a wiffle ball. They have to be part of the 246 people. Who sits there with a clicker?
Nobody.
Well, and it's not a building, there's no stands, it's a field.
They want special events.
I mean, today Cedar Street Social Club could put 200 people out there and not violate their load limit.
But when there's other things going on, they're attracting even more and more people under the same ownership. It's a tough one.
We currently have a motion on the floor that's been seconded, so I'm calling for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Could I have a show of hands for the record? In favor? 4. Opposed? Two. Ayes have it. Item number 2, 2621 Ralston Road, PUD and zoning, requesting holdover. I'll make the motion for holdover to the July 15th meeting.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor for the holdover?
Aye.
Opposed? Item held over till July 15th. Extensions, 6050 and 6086 White Bark Drive. We'll take them as one subdivision in PUD. I'll make the,
I move we approve the extensions.
properly moved in second that the extension be approved. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I did have one point. In the, in your write-up, you don't have, I put some new comments in for that. Will they be included? And all it really did, I think, was change the way they submit the plat for review and everything.
We can make sure it's done the way it needs to be done.
Okay, all right.
I
Nothing
don't
major.
think that needs to be a specific
Okay.
condition. It just will not move forward.
All right. Approved. Item number 4, new subdivision applications, 1864 Staples Road, Dog River Park subdivision, recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, subject to staff recommendation.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passed. Item number 5, 33 Kings Way. We want it held over till May 20th. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor of holdover to May 20th?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Items held over. Item number 6, southwest corner of North Jackson Street, Detente Place subdivision. Ms. Latham is recused. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item passed. New planning approval applications, item number 7, 60 North Ann Street. Recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, subject to staff recommendation, adopting findings of facts A, B, and C.
Second?
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passed. Sidewalk waiver of 1503, 1529 Wolf Ridge Road. Staff recommends denial of the waiver. Is there a motion?
Move to hold over to May 20th.
Second?
Item, motion to hold over to when?
May 20th, the next meeting.
And that's to get another layout of it by working with the applicant?
Hopefully to discuss the applicant, let him better understand the lay of the land of where he can do it, yes.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor for holding over till May 20th?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passed. Item held over to May 20th. Group applications, 808 Magnolia Road, Redemption Place subdivision. It's both subdivision and planning approval. Take separate. Item A, subdivision. Is there a motion?
I move we approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passed. Item B, planning approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve subject to staff recommendations with finding of facts A, B, and C.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passed. Item number 10, Beaver Creek subdivision. We'll take it in two parts. Part A, subdivision, which is recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
I
Move
move
to
we
approve.
approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Second?
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed. Part B, the zoning, which was recommended for denial. Is there a motion?
Move to deny.
Second?
Properly moved in second to deny zoning. Any discussion? All in favor of denial of the zoning?
Aye.
Any opposed? Zoning change is denied. Item number 11, 1600 Yend Street, Malls dewatering plant. Taken two parts. Item A, PUD.
Move to approve subject to staff recommendations with findings of fact B, C, D, and F.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passed. Item B for planning approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, move to approve based on staff recommendations, adopted findings of facts 1, 2, and 3.
Second?
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passed. Item number 12, 2785, 2789 McMay Drive. Taken in two parts. Part A, PUD. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve subject to staff recommendations with findings of fact A, B, C, and E.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passed. Part B, the planning approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, subject to staff recommendations, adopting findings of facts 1, 2, and 3.
Second?
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item pass. That concludes deliberation. Is there any other business to come before us? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.